I want to start with my first question is, when did you sort of discover this passion that you've got, and what you've been doing for so many years?
Great question, and thank you for having me on the show. It is really lovely to have you asking me the questions. um, so I guess since I was 8 years old, I had a session actually with I believe that if you're going to work on your personal brand, you shouldn't be doing that alone. I'm always going to other experts to support me, which is one of the reasons I'm part of your mastermind. Is like, we need the mirror held up to us. Doesn't matter what expertise you have. Always go to somebody else with that expertise to hold the mirror up for you. And many years ago, I brought somebody in to say, hey, I'm helping everybody else with their brand stories. Help me. I need to get to the bottom of mine. And one of the questions that I was asked were, like, what's your history? What's your background? So I went into my background and they said, yeah, but what about that background? What's that background? And when I looked at it, I realized that I come from this tremendous line of artists, musicians, creatives, inventors, entrepreneurs. I come from a very entrepreneurial background, and I never realized that before. So really thinking about my pedigree, I think that was one of the first ways that I realized, wow, actually it goes way back before I was even born. And so, it's this innate thing that's in me to always want to solve problems. And I think since I was 8 years old, and my granddad said to me, you should be a graphic designer, because I was so creative. And I said, what's one of those then? And he said, well, you get to travel the world, and you get to, help people to grow their businesses, and you're a designer. And he told me all these things. And I was like, I definitely want to do that. And so from the age of 8 years old, I was set on how could I be the best designer that I could possibly be. But inevitably, I got there. And because it was somebody else that had given me that dream, I got to that and realized it wasn't my dream. And so that was a point at which I realized then that I'm bigger than this identity, I guess, that I'd been kind of handed down and given. And I realized I was bigger than that. And I've just always had this real thirst to know about psychology. I love psychology, buyer's behavior, color psychology. How can you take your brand and connect that with someone in a non-verbal way where they can have an experience with you without you even opening your mouth? Like, that fascinates me. So I dedicated my adult life really to focusing on that instead, and really meeting the design world with the psychology of why people would buy that. And that's where I really started. That's what gave me my thirst. And as I've gone on and on, I've become so fascinated with how are people growing their businesses? Why does that work and that doesn't? And so I like unpacking things and then putting them back together in a way that somebody can really understand it. And that's what I've done.